All right, welcome everyone. We are just coming up at 5 o'clock now. Just wanted to make a couple announcements before we start. Today's training will be about additional forms, okay? So financial aid is not the same at every single school. There are additional things that you have to do. We're going to be talking about why they're important and where to find them, okay? To help me out, if you can put your child's grade into the chat, that will help immensely, and we will get started right away, okay? So I already see some people put it in the Q&A. I also see some people sent it to me here, just hosts and panelists. Again, whatever works for you, go ahead and put your grade somewhere so I know who I'm talking to, okay? So let's get started. It is April 9th, right? Man, the year has gone by so quickly, right? And we are here at 5 p.m. Pacific time to talk a little bit more about financial aid, the ins and outs of different pieces of the puzzle, okay? So just to kind of talk about what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be talking about additional forms, okay? We're going to talk about where they are, right? Why they can hurt me, also where to find them, okay? Now, as far as general housekeeping rules here, right? Obviously, stay nice and respectful in the chat. There's lots of families here. We want to make sure that there's no mean things being said, okay? We also want to make sure that if you guys don't get all the information in one go, because I'm going to be throwing a lot of information at you, right? You can ask for the replay if you're in our Facebook group on our Facebook page. We're going to make a Facebook post. Go ahead and respond that you want the replay. We'll send it to you, okay? If you're in our coaching family, it'll be available in on our private YouTube channel in 24 to 48 hours, okay? Just a little bit about me, if you guys do not know about me, okay? I am a former college and law school admissions reader. I'm a former lawyer, right? I have helped hundreds and hundreds of students go to college, and I've also helped those hundreds and hundreds of students save money on college, okay? So I want to be able to kind of help you guys, right? Now, for those of you guys that are new to our Facebook group, Financial Aid Secrets, right? We are actually part of a bigger organization called egelloC. Okay, you can see it down at the bottom there, right? We're formerly known as College Admission Secrets. So we focus on both sides of the coin, right? We focus on getting your kid in. We also focus on saving you money once we decide where you're going to go, right? So we talk about both processes there, right? Now, a lot of people have been asking, what does your name mean? Because people don't know, right? So egelloC is actually just college spelled backwards, right? Now that you know the trick, right, you will never be able to unsee it. But our name is egelloC, okay? Now, I always start with a little bit of financial aid breaking news, right? Because I always want to kind of update people on what's going on in the kind of world related to financial aid, right? So we'll kind of start here. Now, I've been showing this, right? California extended its deadline until April 2nd. That's their priority deadline for financial aid. Okay. Now that's great, right? But that's the priority deadline. Even if you haven't filed yet and you have a continuing student or a soon to be college freshman, it's not too late. But before you fill anything out, you should talk to me so we can understand your situation, right? Another thing, if your student is going to be a freshman this year and you were kind of a victim of the kind of January California wildfires or you were impacted by them, right? Please go ahead and reach out to the school that you're going to be headed to, because a lot of schools are offering kind of financial aid readjustment for those families, right? Now, for everything else, same thing, right? Oh, the U.S. Department of Education is gonna, be disbanded and this and that, so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff that's still up in the air. Nothing's for sure yet, okay? With any new information that is there, I will let you know as soon as we have a training, all right? But everything right now is literally just rumors and gossip. We don't know what's for sure and what's not, right? There hasn't been kind of like the gavel hasn't been banged yet, right? So we have to figure out exactly what's going to happen in the future, okay? So let's get into the training. Again, my fair warning as we go into our trainings is this, right? If these are any of the things that you have thought to yourself about financial aid, my family makes a little too much. You've heard that your neighbor's kid didn't get anything. You're not going to get anything, right? If you own a home or a rental property, right? If you have saved for college and you don't think you need help, right? My question to those families is always, well, don't you want to try? Right? If someone said, well, you know what, if you give us a little information, we might be able to get you a discount on a new car you're buying, right? I'm pretty sure that most families would go for that, right? But when it comes to college and financial aid, a lot of families are just like, oh no, we don't want to go down that road. And I'm not sure why, right? I've had a lot of consultations this week, right? And I've told our kind of, the kind of new people coming in for consultations, hey, we have a money back guarantee. And a lot of them say, well, isn't this a no-brainer? And I'm like, yeah, it is a no-brainer, but a lot of people don't pull the trigger, right? And so I said, well, maybe I need to do something different. So if you guys want to give me some advice as to what I need to do different, right? I can definitely I'll take that advice. I'm good with constructive criticism, right? But because of our money back guarantee, the situation for most families is that we're going to try our best to get you money. If we can't, we give you your money back, right? If we are successful, that's great. We want to work together, for the next 4 years to make sure that you get that money for the next 4 years. Okay. So just keep that in mind as you're kind of going over the information that I give to you today. Okay. Now, a quick word from our sponsor. Okay. egelloC, like I said, is our parent company. Financial Aid Secrets is a kind of a component of that, a subsidiary, if you will, right? Now, we actually had our first kickstart last week, right? We had students walk in with nothing, just some ideas maybe, right? Their activities written out. And we had students that left that day with very strong drafts of their UCPIQs and their personal statements, okay? Now, I guess my question to you is, how many juniors do you know that already have solid presentable drafts, right? That they could technically turn in if they wanted to right now in April of their junior year. If you do know someone like that, well, that's great, right? But I'm guessing that the majority of people do not know someone like that. Okay. So we are having our kickstarts in April, May, and June. Okay. That's our 1-day Saturday event from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. that is going to help your student get solid drafts of their essays out, get the content that they want out onto the page, right? The second event that is part of our College App Intensive is the Accelerator, okay? That is when students will bring in their drafts that they've been working on and try to get them to final form and even maybe work on some of their early decision or early action schools, okay? Now, again, we do have virtual or in-person options, right, for the Kickstart and for the Accelerator. So if you are interested, please visit our website at collegeappintensive.com. I will also have a phone number that you can text later in order to get more information. Okay. But let's get into the training for today, right? And the training for today is additional forms. Okay. Now, when it comes to the kind of forms you need to fill out for the financial aid process, FAFSA and CSS Profile, those are two kind of forms that are more well known, right? And I actually have gone over those over the past kind of, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, right? So I had a FAFSA day, I had a CSS Profile day. So if you are interested in getting more information about that, you can ask on the relevant posts in Facebook, or if you're a coaching family, go to our kind of YouTube channel to watch those things so that you can go ahead and get access to what the FAFSA is about, what the CSS Profile is about. But today, we're going to be talking about things that are in addition to that, okay? The first thing that I want to talk about is IDOC, okay? Now, you might call it I don't know. People call it different. Some people call it IDOC. Some people call it IDOC. IDOC is less syllables for me. I call it IDOC. Okay. But the first question that is kind of on everyone's mind is, well, what is it? Right. So it stands for the Institutional Documentation Service. Okay. This is also run by the College Board. Right. This is a place where you might turn in different documents that colleges are requesting. Right. That might include tax returns or W-2s or 1099s, non-custodial parent waivers, right? Other types of waivers, right? Fee waivers, right? Or letters that you need to get turned in, right? Now, the one thing I will say, and that you'll see as we go through the rest of this training, is that not every college uses every system out there, right? So you need to be very kind of wary of what needs to get turned into what school, right? So not all colleges that use the CSS profile participate in the IDOC service. So you need to be careful. I'll also have some examples of that later. Okay. Now, I also wanted to kind of tell you guys a little bit about school-specific forms, right? Because again, like I said, each school has their own financial aid process that they go through. When it is a like state school, whether you're in California or Washington or Texas or New York, right? It's a very streamlined process, right? But when you're talking about, some other schools like Michigan has a very kind of like elaborate process you have to go through, right? Or private schools like USC that have a very elaborate process you have to go through. There are other things that you need to fill out. Now, the first question that you're probably going to ask is, well, where do I go, right? We talked about FAFSA, we talked about CSS, and now we talked about IDOC. That seems like 3 separate systems that you need to navigate already. Yes, that's true. But there are additional places that you need to look. And I wish that there was like, oh, you need to look at this one other site. No, unfortunately, that is not the case, right? There is not an easy answer to where you need to find these forms. The forms that that specific schools will ask for, it might be somewhere like hidden on their website. It might be in a corner of the student portal, or they might send it to you via email that gets automatically directed to your spam, right? So you literally have to be checking everywhere to see what additional forms they need, right? So again, it might be FAFSA that they want. It might be CSS. It might be IDOC. It might be something on their portal. It might be something on their website that you have to download and print out and sign and turn back in, right? Or it might be something that they have attached to an email. So it literally can be anywhere, okay? Keep that in mind, okay? Now, what types of forms might they ask for, right? Literally, they might ask you to fill out anything. They might have you fill out the FAFSA. They might have you fill out the CSS profile, but then they might also have you fill out the same information again on their own school-specific form, okay? So just because you feel like you've done it before, if it doesn't show that it's completed on your portal, it has not been completed. Now, again, there is a caveat, right? If you turn something in, usually it takes the schools anywhere between 7, 10, 20 business days in order to update your actual portal, okay? So keep in mind, if you know you have turned it in, right, which is why you should have a system of kind of keeping track of everything, right, then you should be fine, but you need to make sure that things are getting turned in. They also might ask for dependent verification forms, okay? Now, dependent verification forms, it sounds very complex, but it's just asking how many dependents do you have? Right? So you have, mom, right? You might have dad, right? You might have grandparents, you might have other children, you might have aunts and uncles that you're taking care of. But the real answer to this question is, and because we have a lot of families where maybe grandpa and grandpa don't live here, but parents are taking care of them. If they're not on your tax return, the colleges don't really care, right? So while it is a noble thing that you are doing, taking care of your parents that live in a different country, if they are not able to be on your tax return, then they don't care about that dependent, unfortunately. Right? But there are other ways that you can show that there are additional expenses for your family through other kind of different things, right? There's also income verification forms. Literally, some of the forms are as easy as how much you make, right? Other verification forms are how much you make. Please input this number from your W-2 or 1099 into this box, right? And it's very complex, right? What are your Medicare wages? What is this wages? What is that wages, right? So again, every form differs, right? And so that's why it becomes so complex, right? They also might ask for signed tax returns. Now, I know that there's a lot of families, when we're working with families, we ask them, hey, I need your tax return. And they say, really? Like my whole tax return? It's like 85 pages. And I'm like, yeah, I need the whole thing, right? Now, the digital world has made it very easy. You don't need to mail me something in a manila envelope. You can literally send me a PDF, right? Through email, right? We use Dropbox. We found that it is the most secure. You upload it into our Dropbox. We have the information that we need, okay? But sometimes schools need signed tax returns, okay? They actually need a physical signature in black or blue ink on the front page of your tax return, okay? Again, W-2s and 1099s. They also might have additional information forms that they want from you, right? They also might have special circumstance forms that you can turn in, right? Like something I was saying before, right? Like if grandma and grandpa live overseas, right? They don't have social security numbers, so they're not on the tax return, but our family sends them, I don't know, $2,000-$3,000 a month, right? So that, they can kind of get the care and treatment that they need, right? Okay, well, then that might be a special circumstance, right? Also, they might have appeal forms, right? If you feel like your situation calls for more financial aid, you can always appeal, right? Now, are appeals always successful? It depends on how you write them, right? That is also something that we help in our kind of financial aid program, okay? So again, there's different types of forms that can be part of the process, okay? Now, there is a little bit of a quicker way to find out if what a school will need and what will not need, right? So there is a website, right? It's run by the College Board again, right? If you go to your kind of Google search bar and type in CSS participating institutions, you will be led to a page that looks like this thing on the right, okay? Once you're there, you'll be able to see which colleges use the CSS profile, right? And you can also kind of filter for other things that they have up there, like, oh, do they accept CSS profiles for international students? Or do they also do non-custodial parent waivers, right? Do they participate in IDOC? These are all different things that you can kind of filter for to see, right? Now, most of the time, students, it's not necessarily about the financial aid the financial aid factors are usually not the reason why a student is applying to a certain college, right? But it's nice to see what might be required of you if you do apply to that school, okay? Now, if you actually look here, right, these are the kind of like the filterable areas, right? So again, you can look by state, you can look by kind of like who requires for domestic students, right? If you go like and you click on these buttons here, right? Here, if you click yes, then it'll show a list of all the schools in alphabetical order in the United States that accept that require the CSS profile as part of your financial aid, right? If you click no, then it's a school that will just require FAFSA, okay? Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky and you need to listen very carefully, okay? So IDOC, that's where you turn in various pieces of documentation, right? If you go ahead and click here and then you click the schools that say, oh, well, it's like, you know what, financial aid is like, there's a lot of stuff. I want to do the least amount of work for financial aid, and you want to apply to schools that don't require the IDOC. That's great. Go ahead and find the schools that are no, right? The problem is what I just told you above, right? While they may not require IDOC, they might actually require you to turn in forms on their specific portal, right? So just because they are telling you you don't have to do IDOC for this school does not mean that they do not require additional information, okay? So keep that in mind there, okay? Again, I just reiterated what I said here, right? Just because they don't need the CSS or waivers or IDOC does not mean that they will not have additional information. You have to be searching everywhere, the portals, emails, websites, right? Again, they purposely make this a complex kind of system because they don't want families to go through the process, right? They want you to give up, right? And not get money that you deserve, okay? So as part of kind of our program, we make sure that we are more stealthy than them, right? We are more, you know, cunning and clever than them, right? So that we do get our families money. Now, I also want to give you a couple of examples that show colleges that have their own systems, right? So just this year, and obviously this changes every year because the colleges are revamping their financial aid, especially with the changes that are happening this year. There's a lot more changes that could be coming down the road, right? But USC makes you fill out the FAFSA, right? Which is like that gateway form. So of course, they're going to have you fill it out. They also make you fill out the CSS profile, right? And that in itself is a huge form. And then there are additional things that you need to do on their FAST portal, right? Such as uploading your taxes, verifying your identity, right? And then there might be other forms that they want you to fill out on their own specific portal, okay? So that's just one example of a school that uses the FAFSA, the CSS, but doesn't use IDOC, but uses their own portal in order to get that information, okay? So that's one example, okay? Baylor, right? Baylor is, again, their own specific way. Baylor requires the students to do FAFSA, and then they don't require the CSS or IDOC, but they do require the student to upload documents through their own specific portal, okay? So I think you guys are starting to get like the kind of the pattern here, right? They might require this, but they might not require this, but that doesn't mean that they don't require this, right? So again, each school you have to look at very carefully, okay? So that's Baylor, right? Another one, Princeton, okay? This is the word like I feel like one of the worst ones, right? Princeton makes you do the FAFSA, makes you do the CSS profile, and then they also make you upload any waivers and tax documents via their portal, right? In addition, they also have another form that you have to fill out in their specific portal, right? That is literally a copycat of the FAFSA and the CSS, okay? I don't know why they're making you do things like 7 times over and over again. Okay, so these are just 3 examples of the like 3,000 to 4,000 colleges in the United States. Okay, I'm sure there's a lot more crazy schools too, right? But these are just some of the ones that I remembered from this past year that were a little bit of a pain to deal with. Okay, now quick takeaways here, right? Takeaways, right? This is not an uncomplicated process, right? You guys just saw like a tiny piece of the puzzle, right? The additional form section. And I'm sure that there's some people out there that are hyperventilating and getting anxiety, right? But again, that's why we're here to help you guys through that process, answer questions if you guys have them, right? For families that I am able to help, I introduce our program. For families that I'm not, I give you guys some advice, tell you kind of all the information that I can, send you on your way, right? Now, if the colleges, right, all use the same system, right? Again, I wouldn't be here to give you this information and tell you how complicated it is, right? There are too many families that fall into into these traps of like not knowing where to find things, and then they forget one of the smallest details, and then they're not able to get aid, right? So the kind of biggest takeaway here is that you need to stay vigilant so that you can get aid. It's not just about, oh, I did the FAFSA, right? Yeah, of course. That's like the first form. But if that's where you stop, right, then I'd probably say 60% of the colleges, you're not going to get aid because you haven't finished everything else, right? So just keep that piece in mind. Okay. Now, again, I also always like to tell you, hey, here's some things that you should be doing, right? So if you're a junior, it's more relevant. For younger ones, it's still relevant, right? But you have to remember that you need to do it in your relevant year. Okay. So first things, right? There's 6 days until you have to file your taxes, right? So parents, right? I understand no one wants to pay the tax man, right? But pushing it out 6 months doesn't really do any good for you, really, right? Unless there's like a complicated situation, right? So if you are kind of like just deciding to push it off, or like your CPA is too busy, can't get to your stuff, I definitely get it. But if you're a junior family, you need to get it done before the summer's over, okay? So get it done ASAP. Right now, for younger students, I actually talked about this last week too, right? But before the start of the financial aid process. So if you're a sophomore right now, it is a perfect time to make sure that these things are correct. Your name, right? Again, how your name is legally put into the kind of system, into Social Security, right, is very important, because if it's not able to match you on the various forms, then you will not get financial aid either. So if you have a hyphenated name, if you have a space in your first name, those are things that you want to make sure that you check, so that your first name is actually like A space B, instead of A is your first name and B is your middle name, right? You want to make sure that your Social Security numbers are correct, right? Not just from your memory, but from your actual Social Security card. Now, because adults, you guys use it all the time, I'm sure you guys don't carry around your Social Security card, and it's obviously not something that you want to lose, right? I know mine by heart. I'm sure all of our parents out here know them as well, right? But students, sometimes you think you know, right? But I told the story, last week as well. I had a family, their kid was 17. They had been using the wrong Social Security number for the last 17 years until we got to financial aid. And I was like, I'm not able to match up your student's date of birth, their name, and their social number and their Social Security number, right? They went back and checked and they were 1 digit off. Okay. So remember, those things need to be clarified before we get to the financial aid time, because I don't know if you guys have tried, but I lost my Social Security card once, right? It literally, I went into the Social Security office for like 5 days straight in a row, starting at 8 o'clock, trying to get a replacement card. And finally on my 5th day of doing it, I was able to get it. But getting an appointment at the Social Security office is like, the DMV seems like cake compared to that. Okay. So just keep that in mind there. Okay. Now, a little bit about why we're different, right? Again, for a lot of different places, the financial aid programs are there so that they can sell life insurance or annuities or this or that, so something else, right? We don't tell your student that they need to have a perfect GPA and a 1600 either, right? And again, we don't tell you that you need to apply to schools that you would never go to anyway, right? So other companies, they try to use different tactics to try to get you money. For us, it's about using our proprietary formula to try and kind of tell colleges, hey, yes, we make this much, but we need help because of this, this, and this, right? So everyone has a different strategy that we can employ. So even if you're a higher income family, come and talk to us. I'm sure we can find a solution for you, right? Now, I always like to share our recent results, right? These are some of the recent ones from right now, right? Again, as more come in, as I have kind of like consultations and meetings with our financial aid students kind of all through kind of April. So more should be coming in, right? But for this family, I was able to get them 30 from this school, from Chapman, $30,000 a year. Their family AGI was around 350. Okay. For this family, their family was around the 230 mark, right? And this was specifically at UC Davis, but I was able to get them over $39,000 in money, right? That's free money, right? Not loans, not like money that needs to be paid back, just in free money. So they're going to pay about roughly $2,000 a semester to go to UC Davis, right? Another family, right? I was able to find them different options. I was able to actually even talk to Baylor and get them more veterans benefits so that their family that makes around 437K a year, right? They're going to Baylor for basically half price. Okay. So these are some of our kind of like results from this graduating class of 2025, right? And so I wanted to share those with you as well. Okay. Now, again, we want you to reach out to us, right? There's no harm in talking to us and then us realizing, hey, you know what? In your situation, I cannot help, right? It'll take 15 minutes of your time, right? We'll have a good conversation and then we can figure out if I can help you or not, right? If you are interested in talking to me about financial aid, you can text money to 949-775-0865. If you're interested in our coaching programs, right? We have different coaching programs and we accept students that are kind of entering high school, right? The earlier you start, the better. The one thing I will say about our programs is this: it doesn't matter if you join in 11th grade or if you join in 9th grade, the price is the same. So, well, if you're looking for bang for your buck, join as your student is entering 9th grade. Okay. But text college for info on our coaching programs. Also text college if you're interested in our college app intensive. Okay. Again, we just had our first one. Those students, right? Every single one of them that was there on April 5th, which our first kickstart, walked out with solid drafts. Every single one of them. Okay. So we have another one on April 12th. I will be running that one. Okay. I am expecting that those students walk out with solid drafts and their anxiety level about the college admission process is going to completely disappear because they are light years ahead of their peers right now. Their peers, they're not even thinking about college apps right now. They're probably going to start thinking about it in August. But our students, they're going to get it done much quicker. Okay. So I'm also going to put the link if you guys want to just book straight on my calendar, right? I will go ahead and put the link for our financial aid consultation in there as well. But I did also want to open it up to questions. Okay. So I do see a lot of families here, right? I see I see a lot of families that are juniors, right? I see a lot of families that are seniors that I've talked to before, right? So if you guys do have questions, more than happy to answer them for you. Okay. So go ahead and put them in the Q&A, put them in the chat. Make sure that you take a screenshot. These QR codes should work, right? So you can book your consultation with us, right? Again, a lot of the specifics will be things that we have to talk about in an actual call, right? If you tell me, or like if you ask me a question, well, I make $400,000 a year, can I get financial aid? My answer is going to be maybe, right? That's why we want you guys to sign up for that consultation so I can get into the nitty gritty of where that $400,000 is from. Okay. We have a question here. It says, for fall 2025, is it too late to do FAFSA for a UC school? Yes and no. Technically, is it? Yes. Is it still feasible? Yes. Right? So I would suggest that you sign up for a consultation ASAP, right? If you can't find anything in the next 3-4 days, right? Please reach out to me via email, and you guys can reach out via email if you have a more specific question. And here is our email. Okay. I'll put it in one more time so that you guys can, so I can find a time for you, whether it's has to be super early in the morning or it has to be later at night. If you are a senior right now and you're kind of like struggling between decisions, right? Most likely if you have filled out financial aid, there's not much I can probably do for you at this point. But if you have not filled anything out, then there might be something that I can do. Okay. So we have a question here. It says, we applied to UC Riverside and UC Merced for the free per count me in program. Can you explain why these two programs are $6,000 more than the top UC campuses? I am not sure what numbers you're looking at, right? But as far as the cost of a UC, right, what their kind of like online price is, I guess, right? It's roughly around $45,000 to $47,000, depending on the school that you're looking at, right? So for instance, like UC Berkeley cost of attendance for this upcoming year, let's just take a look real quick, right? Because it's roughly, so it's roughly around $45,000 a year, right? Now you also said UCR, and I'm guessing it's right around the same. UCR is, so they actually haven't put out their 2025-26 information yet. It's only up to 2024-25, but for 24-25 it was $43,603. So it's going to go up a little bit, so it's going to be around 46. So I don't really see the $6,000 difference that you are talking about necessarily, right? It might be, you might be talking about your net cost to attend, right? That might be different, right? But the overall cost of attendance for UCR versus UC Berkeley is roughly the same, right? Obviously, there's cost of living differences between like Riverside and Berkeley, or LA and somewhere else. Okay. Yeah, if your net cost is different, that shouldn't be the case. Across the UCs, your net cost should be roughly the same, right? So you might want to talk to the financial aid office to see what's not there. Or you can compare the two offers and see what was provided at one school and what was not provided at another school, right? The things that I believe in your situation that should be there, the Cal Grant should be there, right? There should be some kind of middle-class scholarship there. But if there are university-specific scholarships that were given to a certain student, then that can differ by campus. But the middle-class scholarship, the Cal Grant, those should be the same across the board. Okay. But again, university grants, more specific things might be a little bit different. Okay. All right. Other questions that I can answer for you guys? I will do last call, right? Usually that prompts some questions, right? So last call for questions. If not, we'll close down. Again, I will make a post on our Facebook groups, so that if you are interested in watching this over again, you definitely can, right? But the best way to get in contact with us is either have a consultation or text with us. We can provide you a little information, right? So take a screenshot of this last page, right? And then we should be fine. We have a question here, and it says, for FAFSA, what income is not considered? Nothing, right? So everything is considered as far as income. As far as your investments are concerned, it's not necessarily your investment isn't income. It's the dividends from your investments that is considered income, right? Other income, right? But that is also considered as part of the process. So that's something that we're going to have to look into. Okay. But I do suggest that if you have a senior right now, you haven't filed financial aid, you should talk to me right away. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to leave this screen up just for a little bit so that people can take screenshots or, scan it with their phone, whatever it is, right? If you do have questions, like I said, I've also put the email into the chat as well. Go ahead and send us an email. I will also post on Facebook later tonight. Okay. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, right? It's getting warm where I am, right? Hopefully it's warming up for you guys as well. And if you guys do have additional questions, please make sure to reach out. Okay. It was great talking to you. I will see you guys again next week. All right. Bye-bye.